Hello there, Badgers. One Angry Pagan here. So, it's been a while since I've done one of these, and we're going to be watching Question Time. Let's see if I can... Ooh. I'm having issues. Yep, I'm having issues. Come on. Wait, yeah. I'm having serious loading issues around here. Great. So, from the 9th of Blōtmōnaþ, or 7th of... sorry, not the 9th, hang on. What are we on? 6th of Blōtmōnaþ, or the 7th of November. Question Time, BBC. So let's have a listen.
Tonight's panel from the government is Sarah Jones. She is Industry Minister, working across the Departments of Energy Security and Net Zero.
Okay, I think I've seen her before, but I'm not familiar.
Matt Vickers was appointed just yesterday as Shadow Home Office Minister by the new
I've seen him before, but again, not familiar.
He's also Conservative MP for Stockton West, which is just about half an hour's drive from here.
And they're in Hartlepool as well. Oof. Great.
Tim Montgomery is a right-leaning thinker, writer and commentator.
Great.
In the past, he's worked for or advised Conservative leaders William Hague, Ian Duncan Smith and Boris Johnson. Now he's a senior contributor to Times Radio and Talk TV. And Bonnie Greer is a British-American playwright and author. She's written more than a dozen plays, 2 novels, a short film, a musical history of her hometown Chicago, a memoir and an opera.
Okay.
In 2010, she was awarded an OBE for her contribution to the arts.
Oh dear. This looks a heavily skewed panel towards the right. Or it's equally balanced. So.
Good evening. Welcome to our panel. Welcome to our audience here in Hartlepool. Great to see you. And of course, welcome to you at home. You can join in the conversation on social media. We're on iPlayer, we're on BBC Sounds. We're everywhere, basically, here at Question Time. And tonight, we are in Hartlepool. And our first question comes from Stephen Bales.
What benefits could Donald Trump bring to the UK upon becoming President of the USA once again?
Benefits? What? This is a young lad as well. He's a bit young. It looks like he's a bit younger than me. What the fuck?
Right,
None.
well, unless you've been in outer space, you won't have missed the fact that there has been this election in the States. So your question, Steve, is interesting. What benefits could Donald Trump bring to the UK? Obviously, I'm going to come to you, panel. Just out of interest, what benefits do you think he could bring?
Well, things like trade.
Does this kid know what he's talking about? Has he even been paying attention, or has he just been watching right-wing shill shit? What the actual fuck?
I mean, you talked about tariffs on trade, but,
exactly.
But you still think that would be a benefit?
I think so, yes.
Why? What the fuck?
Things like his ways to solve wars throughout the world, and
I'm not sure this guy knows what he's talking about. He's gained support. He's supporting. He seems to be a Trump supporter, but he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. What the fuck? It's just another idiot looking for simple answers to complex problems, and these simple answers don't fucking exist.
mainly trade though, at the moment.
Trade? What? This kid's a fucking moron.
Right, okay, interesting.
And he sat there with his fucking gormless smile on his face. Fuck's sake. They said that 49% of this country is below the average IQ.
Sarah? What benefits could he bring? That's how
70% in America, but
that's how Stephen has phrased his question.
Well, we already have a really interwoven relationship with America, and we have done for years and years and years. And the trade that you talk about is incredibly important for the UK. The trade between our two countries is about £300 billion a year. If you look at inward investment coming into the UK, we had a big investment summit a few weeks ago. There were some big American firms that are investing in the UK. Equally, some of our firms go and invest.
what's that got to do with Trump? It's like, it seems like the Labour bird here, what's her name, Sarah Jones, she's just waffling.
In America. So we have this very strong relationship when it comes to security, when it comes to intelligence sharing.
But
we
none
have
of that
a really
is specific
strong.
to.
Like, they don't, like, Darren Jones was brilliant this morning, dodging the question. This like, Sarah Jones?
Security.
I mean, that's
what
the
I
relationship
would
with America.
hope.
What about Trump specifically?
Well, what I would hope is that we have a new president who won a very decisive victory. So he has a clear mandate for 4 years. We've just had a general election in the UK, and we won a clear mandate for 4 years. So these two governments need to work together.
Okay,
for the right of.
Can you not
This
think
is
of
a
anything?
poor answer.
Yeah, I think this is what I'm saying. I'm saying
This
if
is
you look at
poor.
what's happened, if you look at the relationships we have,
This is bad.
then I hope we work with Donald Trump to build on those. I hope we have more trade.
I mean, she's got to say this, but it's pretty bad.
I
We're
hope we
talking
have
about
more
trade.
security arrangements. If you look at the world at the moment, the point that you made, the dangers that we see
There's
around
no
us.
benefit to Trump.
This is an insecure world. America is the most powerful country in the world. He is the most powerful president. We have to be working really closely to make sure we are delivering progress in the
This
Middle
is
East,
really
for
poor.
example. And that's what Keir Starmer in his conversation with Donald Trump spoke about yesterday. This is an opportunity to get some kind of change to the really awful situation we find in the Middle East is one example.
And you,
Do you think? Oh my God, this is poor. I'm not usually like the other commentators, leftist commentators on YouTube, where like they're constantly shitting on Labour. This is so bad. Like, Trump is going to be so bad for Gaza, as if Biden wasn't already, right? Trump's going to be worse. And now, oh, you fucking more. No, this is not good. This is not great.
you think he's the man to do that?
I think we'll have to see what he manages to achieve. Of course,
Because he said to Netanyahu,
deliver it.
the Israeli, the head of the Israeli government,
She doesn't like him. I feel like she doesn't like him, but because of, diplomacy, Labour have had to stop going on the attacks against Trump. Is it dishonest? A little bit. But in the interest of diplomacy, I suppose it's fair enough. It's not good. It's not good that America has put us in this position.
just get it done.
Well, we will see what happens when he becomes president. My point is, we are going to work really closely
you've made that
with
point.
America, and
Stephen's
I hope
point is about
that
the
we can see
benefits
our two
specifically.
countries.
It's because there is no benefits. Like, the problem is people refuse to listen to facts now. They just go off the vibes, and it's really pissing me off. But people, it's like what I've been saying for ages on my channel is, opinions seem to matter more than fact. I've been vindicated many times over, and now Labour are having to navigate this bullshit, and they're going to be getting so much shit because they didn't want to have to deal with Trump. Now they're going to have to deal with Trump, and ideologically they're not on board with each other. So yeah,
Working together for the benefit of everybody.
Matt, Stephen's very particular question is, what benefits could Donald Trump bring?
I think exactly what Stephen was saying. So I think, you know what, our biggest trading partner.
see, from the right wing Tory, you're gonna get a positive, review of Trump. This is ridiculous.
Huge potential there. Before, under the last Trump administration, we were in there having the discussions about a free trade agreement. Subsequently, Biden went in. That was toast. But we've got memorandums of understanding in place.
And what about
with
the
various
tariffs
partners.
then? Because Donald Trump has talked...
No, fucking Tory. The free trade agreement was not going to happen because of the bullshit you lot were pulling with Northern Ireland. Also, America already said, including Trump, that we weren't important. He wasn't thinking about us. This bullshit spread to us by the Brexit party of the Brexit Tory party and Nigel Farage. It's utter horseshit. Oh my fucking gods.
Was
Only 5 minutes and 30 seconds in and I'm going fucking mad.
it tariff is his favourite word or something?
Well,
I think
that's
he said.
why-
And he's talked about imposing 10 to 20% tariffs on all imports coming into the US. That would affect
That's gonna
us,
smash
clearly.
us.
Are you worried about that?
We have a special relationship. When he was last...
It's the exact same thing that Sarah Jones said. We have a special relationship. It's all anyone can fucking say.
Last in, he was looking at the
So
free
what does
trade
that mean?
agreement.
No tariffs?
So I'm telling you, the Labour government needs to pull up the chair, get around the table and have the discussion to try and deliver free trade and ensure those tariffs don't happen within our special relationship. I think the other thing that Trump brings, or we could benefit from in the UK, is around defence. We know that he's as keen as we are to see NATO partners contributing more, putting more in.
He doesn't want any part of NATO. He wants to come out of NATO. He's in isolation. He's a self-declared isolationist. This is incoherent bullshit.
Into defence in an increasingly dangerous world. We need to spend more on defence.
And do you think he's committed to NATO?
I think he is committed to NATO.
Oh my
I think we're all
fucking gods. They don't care. They really don't care. Oh, I hate Tories. I hate them so much.
also seen all of the players in.
And the black girl here, Bonnie Greer, British American playwright and author Bonnie Greer, she is like, she's shaking her head at this.
That
I mean,
team
he
need to
said
put more
some
money forward.
not very warm words about NATO. And he said, if you're not paying your way, frankly, the Russians want to attack you, I'd let them.
NATO needs to be putting more money forwards. Each of those partners need to put more money forwards, play their part.
That's not how it works. It's really not how it works. But you know,
We are in a very dangerous world, and the
Constant
partnership
lie
only
upon
works if
constant-
everybody puts in.
oh,
Okay.
I hate this
Let's
man.
hear from this person in the front. Yeah, yes.
Yeah, so you talk about benefits. We need to remember who Donald Trump represents, this whole MAGA narrative. So,
Well, he also represents about at least half the American population, just over.
won the election, fair and square, no issue there. But in his last term in office, he was trying to, sell off, get Boris Johnson and Theresa May to sell off parts of the NHS to private insurance companies.
Exactly. This guy, I'm so glad there's just someone like this in the audience.
Companies based in the States. That means we'd have been paying potential health insurance like they do in America. There was a risk as well that we might get chlorinated chicken as part of a free trade deal. So we need to be careful. He's only after the benefits of his own MAGA base. He doesn't care about
No, he
the people
doesn't.
of Britain and
No,
Europe.
this guy is fucking bang on. This guy in the audience, this guy's bang on. We are 7.5 minutes in, literally. I'm like,
in my opinion, he's only after himself. So that's where I don't
fucking
think
right. Fucking right, mate. And that's got a good portion of the audience applauding, although there are quite a few who aren't, which is disturbing.
The woman in the green jacket, yeah.
Donald Trump only believes in himself and nobody else.
Fucking
he doesn't
right.
want anything to do with NATO. He'll try and crush NATO. That's what he said the last time.
Yep.
All right. And then, just at the very back there, the man in the...
He did. That's the other thing. Many leftists on YouTube are anti-NATO. Now, I understand why. NATO's not exactly always been great. But in terms of actual global security, or at least European security, it's a bit biased towards European, I suppose. But in terms of European security, there's been nothing greater than NATO. And I have this big problem with people who are anti-NATO because of the Cold War, because they're holding a stance that is holding over from the Cold War. Russia is not the USSR. I mean, the USSR was not perfect anyway, but Russia, the Russian Federation, is not the fucking USSR. Stop fucking treating it as if it is. He's not communist. He's not socialist. He's fucking fascist.
Red t-shirt, yeah.
I think everybody's struggling with this question because the answer is not many. It does not bring many benefits at all. I think the only thing we can take from this is that we
that's three good responses, strong responses from this audience.
Can possibly stop relying so much on America, and we can possibly, produce our own products.
Yes, mate.
Seek out other ventures instead of America.
Fucking right.
Okay, man here in the front.
The trouble with Donald Trump is he's very volatile and you don't know what he's going to do next.
Yes, that's four. After that first kid, what the fuck was he thinking? And we had those comments from both Tories and the really bland, shite response from Labour. Expected, but still. The audience is picking up the slack at the moment.
Next, he can get up on a morning and say one thing, and by lunchtime totally changes his mind. Now, he's on about these tariffs, and I think he will impose high tariffs, and we're going to suffer as much as anybody else, even though we are a special friend to him, so he says, and I don't honestly believe that he has special friends, because he can't even look after his own. He gets rid of somebody who goes against him every time. And to me, you've got to tread very, very carefully with this man, because he could cause a lot of problems. I mean, he's even on about now clearing a war up in 24 hours.
What, in Ukraine?
I mean, how on earth can anybody do that when, wars last for years? And it just frightens me to death. It really does.
Tim?
Good. I'm so
It
good.
doesn't frighten you to
This
death,
is
does it?
this is the
I tell you
response.
what frightens me over the last few years, and I say this respectfully to Joe Biden because I think he was a good man, but unfortunately what the world saw in the now outgoing president of the United States was a weak, declining man, a man declining before our eyes.
Yeah, I can't argue that point.
If you are Putin in Moscow, or you were the Taliban in Afghanistan...
Trump's not going to stand up to these people. Trump did a deal with the fucking Taliban, you retard!
Or frankly, the proxies of Iran who are terrorizing the Middle East, you didn't see an America that worried you at all. You thought you could get away literally with murder. Now, what the gentleman there just said is partly right, I think. With Donald Trump, you do not quite know how he's going to react to anything. But what he is, whether we like it or not, he's a strong man. And my hope, and this is the big hope I think for Britain, is
I think he's about to advocate for Britain to have a strong man. Oh shit, like what the fuck?
and for the world. If you have a strong man in the United States who invested a lot in the military last time, I honestly believe the world will be safer. Now,
oh, fucking great. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised, really. But this cunt is actually feeding the strongman narrative. They are actually properly going ahead with it now. This is Tim Montgomery is and the right and the others on the British right wing are actually lighting this match now. With this, he's saying we need a strong man in America. It's feeding that narrative to get a strong man here in Britain. Not like you're gonna get that out of the Tory party, but oh shit. I don't know if anyone else can fucking see what I'm or hear what I'm hearing out of this, but I am not fucking pleased.
It may be not the conventional route, but I think with Biden in the White House, we have seen the world get much more dangerous. And I think who would have feared Kamala Harris if she'd been elected? I don't think she would have frightened anyone at all. Trump will change people's view of the calculation. You take on America with Trump in the White House at your peril, and we'll all benefit from the safer world that will ensue.
So,
I don't like the fact that so many are clapping at that. I don't like that.
Oh, but since you mentioned Ukraine and Donald Trump says, I can sort that out within 24 hours. I mean, giving him the benefit of hyperbole there, many, not least President Zelensky, fear what Donald Trump will mean for Ukraine. We've got European leaders in Budapest today talking about exactly that. Does that give you pause in your support for Trump?
Look, what is happening in Ukraine at the moment is the most important issue we should be worried about on our continent. There was a BBC reporter, I forget who immediately, Fiona, but told the story about a mother who had seen her son murdered that morning, and Russian soldiers were celebrating outside her home about the death of her own son. But what is happening in Ukraine?
What a prick. What an absolute cunt. How fucking dare you? You're gonna legitimize Trump, who is a danger to those people, to the people you're to the person you're actually talking about, and you're about to, oh my fuck, you're a cunt. You're an actual cunt. Charlie uniform, November Tango cunt.
Ukraine at the moment. So
Tim
bow
Montgomery.
to no one. Putin is evil. Evil. Unqualified. But what we're seeing at the moment in Ukraine is a World War I situation. It's trench warfare.
Then we should be giving them more support, you fucking retard. Bring him into NATO. See what Putin does then, cunt.
The Ukrainian and Russian people are losing their lives. They're being maimed. They're being injured. We have to find a way of ending this war. Now, my hope is, and I don't know exactly what he means by that 24-hour promise, but my hope is that he will say to Putin,
you fucking know exactly what he means, you lying little prick. You damn well know what he means. Capitulating to Russia is what he fucking means.
Some sort of arrangement. Putin has lost lots of people. He hasn't got Ukraine. He's been humiliated.
But surely, Tim, what people fear is that any agreement that Putin would settle for would have to include retaining some Ukraine.
I'm afraid it would do, because I don't see any other alternative. You can say, okay, we're not going to accept any loss of Ukrainian territory at all, and in which case the war will go on. I don't like the fact we have to do a deal literally with the devil, in my view. I regard Putin as the devil. But I think some sort of deal has to be done to him. Otherwise, we're going to see our continent with more blood flowing over it for years to come.
You remove the possibility of Ukraine joining NATO, and all Russia will do is put its proxies back in Ukraine. For the most part, Ukraine has had enough of Russification. I really wish people would understand this.
I hope what Putin and what Trump says in return is, in turn for the deal, we'll make the rest of Ukraine a member of NATO. If the rest of Ukraine was attacked, then there would be, the whole of NATO would be on Ukraine's side. But I'm afraid, as much as I hate the whole idea, a deal does have to be done some way.
Woman in the... Sorry, what was that? I couldn't...
It didn't work in the Second World War. It
Fucking right, son.
won't work now.
You said you're talking appeasement.
And I can understand that, and I've made it incredibly clear that I do not like the prospect of giving people...
The old guy then meant end of the First World War, but I know what he means. Even then, beginning of, just before the Second World War started, it didn't fucking work for the Sudetenland, did it, you cunt?
In anything, but he has lost a huge amount of his armed forces. The Russian people are
This
losing...
guy cannot believe what he's hearing. I'm at 13 minutes and 33 seconds, right? I'll put the link to this in the description. This old guy in the glasses that I'm looking at, he cannot believe what he's fucking hearing.
Lives. He hasn't got what he wanted, but
His face didn't change. He cannot believe what he's hearing from Tim Montgomery.
he is a nuclear-powered, a nuclear-armed power.
But you're willing to let him have land that doesn't belong to Russia.
And the alternative is what? Carrying on fighting for years and years to come? Oh my fucking gods. People fear war that much. People fear war so much, we're going to head into one unprepared. Because other nations are ready for war. With more young Ukrainians and Russians dying.
The alternative is enslavement.
I don't think it is enslavement. I'm afraid this guy cannot believe what he's hearing from Tim Montgomery. I know I'm repeating myself here, but he is stunned.
We'll form another USSR.
And if you carry on like this, you are condemning another generation to death, to injury. That's what's going to happen anyway, you Tim Montgomery, you fucking prick. For no gain at all in territory. I don't like the possibility of a deal as much as you do, sir, but I think something has to be done.
Let me. Yes, I will. Yes, right here.
I think we have to take some acceptance of it's happened, okay? We have to accept that he's a shrewd, aggressive, but selfish business person. There is money on the table in the White House, and there's also tariffs to be handed out. What we need is pragmatic, creative, quick people from our current government to be out there doing deals now. Yeah. I'm not convinced that we have those pragmatic people right now that can match that guy face to face.
And it's the woman there.
We'll see. We'll see on that one. So I had to think about my response to that one. We'll see on that one.
With a blonde hair. No.
I think Darren Jones is more than intelligent enough to deal with Trump if he gets put into that position.
Yes.
Is the world gone nuts? Trump is a criminal. I mean, is that the best Americans got? Biden and...
Fucking right, love. Fucking right. He's a damn criminal. A convicted fucking rapist. rapist. America has elected a rapist back to office. Let that fucking sink in.
Trump, out of all the millions, it's sad that he's going to make it a detector's. It's going to be an estate because he is going to try and make it so no one else gets re-elected and he'll be there till he dies. I read that the other day. If that's true, how's that good for your voting? I hope that don't happen.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely. I think I'll stick my neck on, and I think that's unlikely. But certainly, he has talked about how he wants to be a dictator. Others said, obviously, he was saying that in jest. I'm not in a position to say.
Bollocks.
Bonnie.
I want to go back to.
I've been waiting for her reaction because she has not been. She does not look like she's agreed at all with the Tories that are on the panel.
Original question about Trump
and benefits.
No, that's not just because she's black. Like she's been shaking her head whenever the two Tories have been fucking talking.
Fits to this young man who is the future. I was certainly not. I'm a former New Yorker, and I lived in New York in the 80s when Trump was coming up. He's a totally amoral, transactional businessman.
Yeah.
What he's done, and in the American people electing him, he's torn up the post-World War II concordat that we have had since 1945 about how the world is supposed to work. Now, maybe that should happen, maybe it shouldn't, but that's what's happened. And what the United Kingdom is going to have to do.
I haven't heard anyone put it that way yet. Yeah.
The United Kingdom's going to have to go to Mar-a-Lago, either literally or figuratively, and you're going to have to put your wares on the table, and you're going to have to tell him what you can do for him. Now, if you can do something for this man, and when I mean him, the electorate, if you can do something for the United States, you're in. If you can't, you won't. He has no concept of the special relationship. It doesn't mean anything to him.
Fucking right. He does not care.
And I'm saying that not because politically it doesn't mean anything to him. He doesn't see what has the United Kingdom given the United States monetarily. Nada in comparison, okay?
Fucking right. I love the fact they got this bird on.
And what the Labour government is going to have to do is be savvy enough to understand that the underlying question with Donald Trump is, what can you do for me? Now, if you can do something for me, if you can give me some bases, if you can be the stooge over here that holds up the other side of this part of the world so I can do my thing over there, if you pull out of NATO, if you threaten to pull, whatever I need you to do, that's what then we'll have a quid pro quo. That's it. That's the end of it. We got nothing to give him.
Can I just briefly comment? Because I largely agree with what Bonnie said. I think he is a pretty amoral businessman in how he calculates. But actually, I do think we are quite fortunate in a way. He does have an affection for Britain that's different from most countries. I don't know if you remember how he revered the Queen. He doesn't treat many people well.
Stop, Tim, stop. This is the corny American BS that a lot of Americans have that bring them over here looking for the castles and the Queen and all of this stuff.
Fucking right.
It's got nothing to do with the reality of your life as a British person. You can take that to the bank.
I think that's wrong, because if you actually look, he invested in Britain with golf courses. He said his mother was...
With golf courses? No... Oh, mate. No fucking working classman uses a fucking golf course. Or, not many. They don't usually let them in. How out of touch this man is. What the fuck? And what gets me is that some people will be convinced by what Tim Montgomery's saying.
From Scotland, he's not as indifferent to Britain as you think.
I didn't say he was indifferent.
No.
I said you are part of the Disneyland idea of that country.
Hang on a second. So look, we've talked about Donald Trump on this program before, and it's been quite clear to me, and surveys make it clear as well, that the vast majority of people in this country do not support Trump. But there are people that do. And given that he's just been elected, I just want to see if I can hear, Stephen, you obviously do, you asked the question, are there other people here that support, well, that think Donald Trump can do good things? Yes. Okay, let's hear from you here. And anyone else, incidentally, who's got you.
Yeah, I just think, like, when you look at the wars and stuff like that, we've got these world wars going on now. Before, in the last Trump term, we didn't have this, and although Putin is not someone to be trusted, you've got someone who can actually talk to Putin.
Putin took advantage because of the pandemic. That's why he did it. The pandemic gave him an opening. This country's falling for the same rhetoric that Trump supporters are falling for, and reform voters are falling for. You cannot save some people. They will not listen to you. You can spell things out as clearly as possible. They will not listen to you. There is no way to reach them. This is why I do not balk from calling the average voter a fucking moron.
And other like-minded people to it and deter them. And it was like Tim said, it's because you don't know what he's going to do. That's why they won't do that. But, I mean, if you look at our government now, you've got Keir Starmer, and is someone really going to be scared of what Keir Starmer's going to do? They're not.
Okay. Anyone else who thinks that the election
Not many
result
people
in
seem to
America
agree
is
with
a
that
good
sentiment.
thing? Yes, you at the very back. You think that, do you? Right, let's get a microphone to you.
It's a good thing, but I think that Trump in office would perhaps make the road a little bit safer because, like the gentleman said there, about his unpredictability. If you don't know what the man's going to do, you'd be very careful.
They are forgetting that makes him just as dangerous to us. Like, oh, but he won't do it to us. He won't do it to us. He doesn't fucking care.
Before you actually poke the bear. Again, when it comes to the UK dealing with him, I don't think we've got off to a great start with some of Mr. Lammy's comments that he made about Trump before.
What about Boris? What about JD Vance? It seems the media seems to have forgotten about that. Boris said similar shit about Trump. Vance called him a Nazi.
Coming into office.
I mean, Sarah, let me just ask you about that. I mean, there's any number of fruity quotes I could use that David... I mean, Keir Starmer's not been complimentary about Donald Trump either. But, you know, Tyrant in a Toupee is one that's particularly stuck in my mind by David Lammy. How are you going to get past that?
Well, I think, you can look at politicians across the board and find them criticising Donald Trump. Lots of
but David Lammy, in fairness, has used...
well.
I mean, he's called him a KKK sympathiser, a Nazi, all sorts.
I think he's also, Donald Trump, been criticised by his new vice president. Yeah. He's been criticised by Elon Musk. I mean, he's, I think if that was the criteria, then he wouldn't be having relationships with the people he's got around him. Look, David Lammy met with him for dinner a couple of few...
Do you know what's funny? Tim Montgomery just agreed with what she just fucking said.
Weeks ago, they got on well. They've been building relationships. We knew that this was a possibility, so we have been planning for it. And to the point about, how the wider point about how we're going to position ourselves. Look, we will always stand up for our values. We will always stand up for what's right for Britain, right? Because that's important. But we want to do that in partnership with the Americans. We don't want to be in a position where the only way to win peace across the world is for everybody to be frightened of everybody else. That isn't necessarily
let's just talk about peace, because we've had two people now saying, at least two people saying, his unpredictability could be the thing that actually brings peace, because people don't know how he's going to react.
But that makes him just as fucking dangerous to... Just as dangerous to us. This view is not being represented properly.
Or he's a strong man, depending on how you want to put it. I mean, David Lammy called Donald Trump a threat to world order, which is clearly the reverse of what these people are saying.
Well,
It's
yeah,
because those people are fucking wrong. Again, have a go at me all you like, but the average voter is fucking stupid. I've had enough of civility politics. It's time to tell these people they're fucking stupid. You're going to follow a person like Donald Trump. You're going to think Donald Trump's good for anyone but himself and the rich people around him. You're fucking stupid.
There's been, you could probably read out 2 pages of things that various people have said. We have to...
Really don't like being so absolutist, but I have to hammer this point here. There are a few absolutes in life. And one of those is that Donald Trump is an evil fucking cunt.
Deal with
but in
reality,
terms of the likelihood of making elected. But hang on, the point I'm making, I get that, and you said that. But in terms of whether he is more or less likely to bring peace to the global conflicts we say, namely Ukraine and in the Middle East, and given what David Lammy has said about him being a threat to the world order, do you think, as a representative of the government here, that Donald Trump is more or less likely to bring peace to those two situations?
We knew Donald Trump getting power would cause these fucking issues. I wish he could come out and say yes. But we do need to have some diplomatic ties with the US. That's the realpolitik.
We don't know because he hasn't become the president yet. He hasn't.
Well, from what you've seen and from what he said, he's run a long campaign.
There's been a lot of heat in the election campaign, as there was in our election campaign. We will see, but we will make it our business. My view is the British government will make it our business to stand up for what's right for Britain, to stand up for what we think is right in the world, to play our part, to try and have a good relationship with the Americans. We have huge amounts of trade, as I said, as the Minister for Industry. I've met multiple American businesses.
But in terms of whether you've made those points,
thousands of jobs, we can do this.
You've said that, but in terms of whether he's more or less likely to bring peace, and all the...
She can't answer that question. Fiona Bruce knows she can't answer this question. Not without upsetting the Trump administration.
The things he said on the campaign trail about those things, the jury's out as far as you're concerned.
We'll have to see what happens, but we need to play our part influencing, just as other countries will do. And the closer relationship that we're building with our EU partners will mean we also can help in that space.
All right, let me take a point from that man there.
I think.
I mean, again, it's weak, but it's weak again from Sarah Jones. But again, what else are Labour supposed to say? Really, are they supposed to go, look, yeah, America's just been taken over by a Nazi? Yes, it has, but again, it's like people don't know what diplomacy is for.
If you look at the people surrounding Donald Trump, you can see the most disgusting, racist, homophobic people. I don't think you need to look at Trump himself.
That too. I'm so glad that there are people like this in this audience.
Look at who he's surrounded by, and I think it's so obvious that he's going to bring nothing but destruction to the world. I can't see him doing any good for the world whatsoever.
And you say that, and yet he increased his vote share amongst black people, amongst Hispanics, amongst other...
Yep. Turkey's voting for Christmas. It's like old people voting for Tories, thinking that they'll do them any good, and all they want to do is get rid of the NHS, which is what the old people fucking need. You know.
The people of colour.
Yeah. I don't understand that personally.
I do.
I'll come to you then, Bonnie. Let me just hear. Yes.
You see, the thing is, we're underestimating Donald Trump because when you think about it, he had 4 years of presidency before the other one, and he's been shot, he's been criminal, you know, with
He's
his
a criminal. He's a convicted criminal.
and he's still got voted by his own country with the biggest majority.
Okay.
And you know, to me, you know, you can't underestimate the guy.
All right, the woman next to you.
In my view, he's I believe, a 64 count felon. He's committed numerous crimes. He should never have been allowed to run for
Yes.
presidency in the first place.
Fucking yes. There are more than enough eloquent people in this audience tonight to make up for the disgusting attitudes of Montgomery and Matt Vickers, Tory MP.
He has broke some constitutional laws. He is a criminal in so many ways. The only benefit I could possibly see from Trump becoming president is, as people have said, benefits towards war procedures, benefits towards negotiations, and even that is not a guarantee because of how unpredictable he is. He is openly admitted and supported his supporters going out and causing a race war. He has created legislation against women's bodies. He is controlling. He should not be a man allowed in power.
I mean, pretty much everything that you're saying is true, and yet he won. And not only did he win, he won the popular vote.
It's a problem. A big fucking problem. Hitler originally got voted in.
And he increases vote amongst black people, amongst Hispanics.
Well,
You're more likely than any of us to have an insight.
Well, black people are people. You know, the thing is, I would tell you a little secret about my fellow Americans. We're squeamish. The second thing about us, we don't go very far. You can find people in America, they ain't gone nowhere. And not only have they not gone anywhere, they don't want to go nowhere. We live, America is a continent between two walls, ocean walls. And a lot of American feeling and sensibility is about being protected, about being enclosed, about being safe, and about the only person who can help you is a man with a 6-gun. Okay? Now, this is all, I'm saying it very crudely and I'm saying it very basically. Of course, it's much more complicated than that. But what Donald Trump appealed to in this election were those tropes. I was surprised that, you know, so many people bought into it. And, you know, Latino people and black people are no different. We're all Americans. But most Americans see America.
I'll just say, it was mostly, when it came to black people, it was mostly men that he increased his vote share. Women turned out for, black women turned out for Harris.
As a fortress, as a place of shelter, as a place of escape. And think about it, this is my last point. America was settled by people who escaped, okay? People who left to do their own thing and build their own life. And it was about rolling up the carpet, using the ocean wall to block it all off. And that is at the heart of the American experience. The brilliance of Donald Trump, besides being somebody that I always felt the American president was going to come off television and probably a television game show. And I'm not kidding. I always knew that. He's done that. And he understands that people in America want to be safe. They want to be safe from you. And if that's possible, you get to lead the country. And that's it.
Okay, listen, I'm going to move on. I suspect we will talk a lot about Donald Trump in the coming years. So I'm going to actually just leave it there for now. I just want to say where we are next week in case you would like to come and be part of the audience, as our lovely audience is here. So next week we are in Basingstoke in Hampshire.
I just want to say that was a brilliant piece that Bonnie Greer just said. Like, what she just said makes so much sense. I've watched so many American Reacts videos for over the past year or so, and one thing I've noticed is that many Americans admit that they don't know much about the world.
And the week after that, we're in Trowbridge in Wiltshire. So if you live near Basingstoke or Trowbridge, you'd like to come take part in the programme. I mean, why wouldn't you? It's good, isn't it? Absolutely. So go to the question on our website, apply. What else you could say there, I suppose? Apply. Here's the instructions, and we would love to see you. Right, okay, let's take another question now from Alexander.
How can Labour say that they are investing in the future while also increasing tuition fees for university students?
Are you a student, Alexander?
What would you say? A bunch of universities actually asked for the tuition fees to go up. Just saying.
Sorry, are you a student, Alexander? So let's hear what you think.
I don't agree with it. I don't agree with tuition fees to start with. I don't think you should pay for your education. I think education should be as free as healthcare.
I am a third year, so it's not really going to affect me. But I've been speaking to first years and my younger sister who wants to be a student. And, you know, we feel betrayed for voting Labour. Labour always seems to be like economy. This government is always, oh, we're going to increase the economy, make it grow. But having a more educated workforce, you know, helps the economy grow. So it just seems, you know, backward.
Okay. Matt?
Well, I think lots. Do you know what? I don't think students are the only people losing out, are they? The budget had lots of consequences. The one that
we're talking about tuition fees specifically. Let's stick to that.
Okay. Well, we've seen lots of movement on, and actually, this generation of students, the people who went to school during COVID, have had the toughest of times. Come out with all of the challenges that being educated during that time.
Conservative government.
You have to make. Well, you have to look at what's going into universities, how you make sure that the right investments there to make sure our universities are competing with the world. I think it is a bit tough, and I don't think that anybody who voted Labour in this election expected to see that come within months of them voting, particularly the students.
I mean, the tuition fees hadn't been raised since 2017, when of course it was the Conservatives.
It was quite sizable.
Since when the Conservatives raised them. Should the Conservatives have got into government this time round, would the Conservatives not have raised them as well?
I don't foresee that we would have raised them. I think there was an effort there. We actually
fucking bollocks.
Significant changes around what a loan was, wasn't there, in recent times, in that your loan was paid back later, you paid it back at a low rate, you were earning more before you paid it back. So sometimes the headline cost is huge, but actually you've got to look at what it means. How many people will end up going back to pay it down? When do they start paying it? How much are they earning before they pay it back? But I still think the people who voted for them did not believe it. But then again, people who voted for them didn't believe they were going to lose the winter fuel allowance. They didn't believe that taxes were going to go up. There's a lot of people who are very unhappy.
We didn't believe there was a 40 billion black hole in the economy because of your bullshit.
At least the farmers. I'm sure we'll go on to it.
Sarah?
I'm expecting a poor response again.
I mean, we talked about David Lammy and quotes. There are quotes galore from Deputy Leader Angela Rayner talking about debt deterring poorer students from going to university. The level of debt for people leaving university is completely unsustainable, and you have just increased that level of debt.
Yeah. Well, look, we made a decision based on the fact that our universities have been in financial crisis for quite some time now. They were really struggling. They haven't had investment for years. And we made a decision that the fees are going to go up by £285 a year. Now, you're not going to be paying more as you go. You're going to be paying off the same amount each month. You'll just be paying it off over a longer period. So did we want to do that? No. Did we want to make some of the decisions in the budget that we wanted to make? No.
And do you agree with Angela Rayner that debt is deterring students from attending university?
Well,
and therefore this move is part of
what we've said, and what Bridget Phillipson, who's the Secretary of State, has said, is that we're going to have major reform of our university sector that she's going to announce next year. So there's going to be reform, and we'll see.
This is why I said I wanted to have patience when analysing this government. because Labour's just come in, there's a whole lot they're going to want to do. Now, whilst a lot has been planned for, there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff like reviews that they're going to want to do coming into government to have all the proper numbers. Because as the black hole proves, they couldn't believe all the they didn't have all of the facts and figures when they were the opposition. So it's going to take a year or two to actually see these things come forward. People are still expecting this shit to be happening immediately, and it's driving me mad. You don't expect a government to come in and things happen immediately. The Brexit changes didn't even start happening immediately. But still, everyone expects immediate change. It's just driving me mad.
See what happens in terms of maintenance grants and things like that. And of course, maintenance grants have gone up as well, which is really important. Further education is really important too, and there was hundreds of millions of pounds of extra funding for further education in the budget. A lot of the jobs that we're going to need in the future, if we're going to grow the economy in the way that we see, whether we need engineers, we need construction workers, we need all kinds of people doing all kinds of jobs, we're going to have to make sure our further education colleges are properly funded, because they've been completely hollowed out over the last years of Conservative government. So, you know, we've made difficult choices, but I would say, and this is really important on the budget is not the end of our ambition. There are some different...
Which is something that I've said, and Phil said, from a different bias, has said numerous times. The budget is not the limit of their ambition. And this is only the first budget. So actually, this response, not as bad as I was expecting.
We had to deal with the problems that we found, the £22 billion black hole, but there are lots more policies. We're setting up Skills England, which will give us a map of the skills.
But just sticking with tuition fees just for a minute.
Industrial strategy so that people can have
just sticking with tuition, because otherwise we could go into a whole list of things. But I totally hear that you're saying it was a difficult choice, one necessarily you didn't want to make, but it was a choice that you had to make. Do you equally accept that the corollary of that decision is what the Deputy Leader predicted all that time ago, which is that it will deter students from disadvantaged backgrounds going to university, and that it is unsustainable for many? Do you agree that that is still the case?
I agree that we need to encourage people from all backgrounds to go to university.
That's not what I'm asking.
That we will bring in
I'm asking, do you agree with what
I'm
saying?
We'll make sure we have the right package.
And do you?
I think when we have the reforms, when you see the reforms that we make, there'll be a change there that would...
Fiona Bruce is asking a gotcha question, and she's trying to give a long form, like a long complicated answer to it, which is technically the correct answer. It's not just a simple thing to deal with. I want her to end tuition fees. I want to go to fucking university, but Labour aren't going to do that right now.
Will encourage people and enable people to go into university. But the decisions that we took, for example, to protect those lowest paid in our budget from the cost of living crisis that we've just seen, we had to make choices to protect those people.
But not the pension.
On the minimum wage, for example, so 3 million people will have a pay rise.
Let's stick with tuition
But of course we want people to go to university and apprenticeships and further education.
Yes.
17 years old. I applied to university 4 weeks ago.
Oh.
People my age in my school are discouraged from going to university after your announcement. There are no other opportunities for us, because degree apprenticeships have us moving to places like London and Manchester, and they are so incredibly competitive, where we can't have other options apart from university. And the amount of debt that is being portrayed in the media at the moment is discouraging to us.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not great. But, again, like, cost of 14 years of Tory government. Just saying.
Yes. You've got the microphone there, yes.
2 points. Firstly, the increase in tuition fees is probably just about enough to help universities cope with the increase in national insurance costs they have to face from last week. And secondly, a big disincentive for the poorest students is the failure to index the maintenance loan. That's a much bigger question for many in terms of affordability and ability to study.
Right, so it's gone up, but not gone up enough. That's what you're saying.
That's why we need reform
Okay.
of the package
All right.
overall.
Yes, woman here in the glasses.
Have you considered the possible impact that you're going to force talent overseas by raising tuition fees? And you clearly are not answering the questions here. Well, I'm just hearing like a rhetoric coming out. But I have 5 children. I've got one in Cambridge, one in, middle of the road university, and I'm also a special guardian to my 2 grandchildren. So I'm going to be dealing with children who possibly want to go to university, all being well. Where are we going to be at that stage if you're raising them now, that this is going to continue?
That's right. Well, I mean, I would say I hear what you're saying. I've got kids myself in secondary school thinking about what they're going to do. We've put a big investment in this budget into our schools because we have to start there. Our schools are crumbling. We need to do that, and we need to review how the tuition system works. And that's what I'm saying to you is what we're doing. The fees have gone up this year. They have. Maintenance has gone up too, and we will reform the system and we will bring that forward and we will make those changes. But we made some difficult choices for sure. As you know, as has been said, universities are really struggling for funding, and we can't have them falling over. They've got to have the money that they need to educate children. So there's loads of things we need to do to encourage our.
I think what people expect is funding for everything from the government, forgetting that we've had Tories in charge for 14 years, and for the last 4 of those years, 5 of them, we've had the worst of Tories that we so far, and they rinsed us as a nation. Like, if Labour actually put it in those terms, I wonder if people would be this angry.
Did you want to come back?
The Tories rinsed this country. Rinsed it.
Yeah, I would like to come back with respect. So, can you answer my question? What are you going to do when we start losing talent from this country to other countries because you're outpricing people to take those steps into further education?
Where do you think the funding is going to come from for these universities then? I haven't heard anyone explain this. Like, are we just to expect that the state to wholly fund the universities? Is that what we're saying? I mean, eventually, yeah, but like at this point, when people are already going, oh, but Labour, it's a big spend budget.
And possibly to university. I'll just give you a statistic while I'm speaking. 140,000 children live in kinship care. Probably 90% of those children, the carers who've stepped up to stop those children going into the care system have had to give up their jobs. So are you telling me that those 140,000 children don't matter? Because a lot of those 140,000...
That's not what she said. Oh my God. That's not what she fucking said at all, woman. What Sarah Jones said is we need to put investment back into the universities. What you've just gone and done is completely fucking ignore it. She answered your question. Labour have a review for universities coming in over the next year. To go over reforms and such for the universities. But again, what this woman from the audience wants is just like, oh, But why can't you deal with this individual problem as I want it done? Because it can't be done like that.
Children, their families can't afford to maintain them further than they are already. So what are we doing for that? What are we doing? We've got the people who can afford it, and Labour's always talking, you've put a tax on private education, but what are you doing for, because in my view, every child matters. So you're going to lose talent. Okay. All right, let's
I'm sorry, rich kids don't matter. You can fuck off.
I think there's lots of issues there. There's the issue of kinship carers, and the campaigns around kinship carers are really powerful, and we need to look at that, right? Because you don't get ridiculously, you don't get the advantages that people who adopt get, and I think there is a problem there that we need to solve. In terms of people going abroad, I think it costs quite a lot to go abroad to other universities. What we tend to have is people coming to this country to go to our universities because they're really well respected and well regarded, and other European countries often the kids there want to come to our universities. But do we want people to be able to reach their aspiration? Yeah, that is exactly what the Labour Party is for. It's what we're about. We want people to be able to reach their dreams and get into university, get into an apprentice, get into FE and get a good job. And that, over the life of the Parliament, that is what we are here to do.
Over the life of the Parliament. I'm so glad she said that. But what's the betting? No one's going to fucking pay attention.
Speak to the young man, who is he anyway, who asked the question initially. What was amazing to me about this country when I came here 40 years ago was that people didn't have to pay to go to university.
Labour brought it in.
And there's a generation.
Labour did bring it in.
There's a generation of people who didn't have to do that. Now, I had to pay to go to university. I had to start working at 19 years old. And I'm telling you, when you have to, and you know this because you have to do that, you develop a relationship with money that's about debt, that's about trying to make ends meet, that's about stopping your education so you can earn enough money to pay your fees. It's about living from pillar to post. It's about trying to figure out how you're going to be able to buy your books, how are you going to be able to eat, how are you going to pay your tuition fees, and you do all kinds of maybe sometimes nefarious things to be able to go to school to get your degree. I'm not a politician, but I would expect a Labour government, because I support Labour, what I would expect a Labour government to say very simply to me, equal education for all, and we want everyone to have a higher education. Now, how we do that, I'm not sure, but that's what we want to do, and the rest of it flows from there.
The problem is, how do we get to that point? Everyone forgets there's a process to these things. They talk about the end results that they want, but they don't talk about the process to get to that point. The hard process to get to that point.
Well, look, I support the general principle of tuition fees because if we went back to that era when everyone got free university education, we wouldn't have, since then, 3 or 4 times as many people are able to go to university. Now, if that was all paid for by the state, that would be less money for levelling up in Hartlepool, it would be less money for vocational education. You have to make a choice if you're a taxpayer, if you're a government, as what you spend your money on. But what I would say to you and everyone else who is facing the whole prospect of going to university and paying these tuition fees is, we have let you down in that we don't hold universities to proper account at the moment. We absolutely have some of the best universities in the world, but particularly since COVID, a lot of kids are going to university, they're not getting tuition properly, they're not getting the face-to-face tuition that Bonnie and I probably got at university. They're taking place in lectures with hundreds of kids, a lot of it is distance learning. They're not getting a quality of education. A lot of people are getting degrees that aren't setting them up for life. And universities, yeah, they're wonderful institutions, but they're also businesses. And we need to hold them to much higher account than we've done for them. And you know what? I wouldn't mind if some universities closed because they're not providing a good education.
That did not come across well to the two one of the young birds who spoke earlier. and our mate or whatever is sat next to her, they're like, at what Tim Montgomery's just fucking said. They don't like the sound of that.
Decision and the right decision, although it was a broken promise. Another one, but they took the right decision on. It was the right decision to raise tuition fees. But my goodness, let's get more in return from our universities, because at the moment we're not getting that return.
Let me take a couple more points before I move on. Yes, the man there in the blue top.
I'd like to also discuss also the rise in the bus fare caps.
All right, well, we're sort of on tuition fees at the moment.
But this would affect adult uni students, especially working class uni students, who want to change around in their lives, want to get bigger prospects.
I really wish that Sarah Jones would this is the cost of 14 years of Conservative government. I really wish she'd say that.
Especially those who can't afford accommodation closer to the university.
So they have to get
This is the cost of 14 years of Tory government. 10 words.
the busing.
Yes, and that's going to be a 50% increase.
So it's gone from £2 to £3.
Yeah. So they spend £40 a week, 5 days a week. They come into university. That's going to say £60 maybe. I think so. Anyway,
you're getting lost in the weeds now, mate, like I do.
They could have spent that on food, supporting the families. They're not going to have that money.
Okay, well, look, that brings us to another question. So I'm going to hear that question and we'll answer that within it, that's right. So Ben Forbes, whereabouts are you sitting? Oh, yeah.
This will be about bus fares.
After a budget with tax rises for many, when are we going to start to feel that things will get better?
So
We'll just reiterate again. We are, what's now? November. Blōtmōnaþ. Labour have been in since August. It's going to take time for this to happen. It'll be a few years, hopefully within this parliament that we see change take effect.
Do you mind if I ask you, Ben, how you voted at the last election?
I voted Labour.
And I'm getting a sense from the way you've asked that question and the tone in which you asked it that you're not feeling that good about that.
I mean, it's not a budget I wanted. Yes, you said you weren't going to put up income tax, VAT, NI tax and stuff, but in a way where you've put that tax on companies paying more in national insurance, it will inevitably fall on us, one way or another, as consumers. I accept we have had 14 years of sheer incompetence, which needs to be fixed.
Someone had to fucking say it. Someone had to fucking say it.
But, you know, surely better decisions could have been made. Because, quite frankly, you've screwed a lot of people over. Pensioners, farmers.
I mean, farmers aren't that fucked. I mean, they're fucked anyway by Brexit. And they voted for that. Fucking morons. So, yeah, just... Labour did warn that this budget would be painful over and over again.
Many Labour
the
voters
young man
will
over
go
there,
against you.
you feel screwed over about your bus fare?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and you know, it's all right saying that make an unpopular decision now. Many governments, when they've come into government, make an unpopular budget. All governments have done it. But when are we going to feel that the benefits? Because what we don't want is another return to austerity.
Okay, I thought she just had a random book in front of her. So if Sarah Jones got a fucking notebook, she's like, yeah.
Want that.
There's so many things I want to say. The first thing is there will be no return to austerity. That is not the plan in the budget, and that is not the long-term plan. The second thing I want to say is I came in as a minister in the Department of Business and Trade. It's where the money for the Horizon scandal was supposed to be, wasn't there. It's where the money for the Advanced Manufacturing Fund, £4.5 billion, important to this region, really good manufacturing, important part of funding. There was no money for that. The scale of the problem was significant. And then I'd say a few things in the sense of when you should get improvement, when you should see a return. First, people on the lowest income will get a benefit now because we have increased the living wage to a point where 3 million people will get a pay rise that will be significant and will make a difference to their lives. The second thing I'll say
hang on, Sarah, just because your point is that with the rise in employers' national insurance, even if they do get an increase with the minimum wage, which, as you rightly say, you have increased, further down the line, and the Office of Budget Responsibility says, 76% of the cost of that is going to get passed on to.
Well, that's why I get to the other points I was going to make, which is there are some systemic problems with the way this country works that we are trying to fix that will make us better off in the long run. One of them is our energy costs were sky high when we had the war in Ukraine and the problems that came from that. If we are creating our own energy here in the UK, and there's a role in this region for that, a very big role, that we will have cheaper energy and we will be more secure. So there are some systemic things we absolutely have to tackle. The third thing I'll say is everybody in this audience, if they get sick, should be able to go to a hospital. This is really important that we invest in our public services. So we made a decision in the budget to invest a lot of money into the health service and into our schools because that is really important and will make a difference in the long run. We have millions of people off work because they're sick.
I really wish a Labour politician would say, this is the first budget. This is the first budget. 5 words. They aren't difficult.
If we fix that, there will be more money in people's pockets. And the final point I'll make, which is why it is our job now to beat those OBR forecasts. So through things like changes to our skills landscape, through things like the industrial strategy, through getting business to invest in the UK, we have a whole raft of policies, the measures of which are not in the OBR.
But what do you say? So specifically, hang on a second, specifically to Ben's point though, if you've got employers such as today Sainsbury's, Marks and Spencer's, BT, what have you, saying they're just going to have to put prices up, and you've got other employers saying, well, we're going to have to just either have fewer staff. I had some on the programme last week. Fewer staff, maybe employ people abroad, and you've got the Bank of England saying inflation is going to come down more slowly than it might otherwise have done. When is Ben going to not feel the disadvantages of that, but actually feel he's got more money in his pocket?
Well, the OBR forecast showed that by the end of the Parliament, there'll be growth and people will be getting better off. We want to beat that. We are introducing policies that will do that. If people are not so sick, if people are managing to go out to work, if people have got a better security net, so employment rights, all of those issues, you will be better off, the country will be better off. But I understand where you're coming from, right? I completely hear what you're saying. As someone who voted Labour, it's my job to persuade you by the end of this Parliament that you are better off, you'll see it in your pocket.
He's got to feel that he's better off, not persuade him.
By the end of this Parliament. Why didn't you just fucking say that? You made it... She's not great at public talking, I don't think, Sarah Jones. She could have just said, by the end of this Parliament.
Forecast actually, as a result of the budget, drew it down. It said that growth was going to be lower. It said that inflation was going to be higher than it was before the budget.
But Matt, you oversaw the lowest living standards, the biggest drop that we'd seen.
We can go on about history, but actually...
No, oh my fucking gods. We could talk about history. No, what she's talking about is what brought us to this fucking point, you little cunt.
We have to
It's very recent history, in fairness.
2 points.
It's all right, but the OBR forecast was that growth would actually be slightly lower than if you hadn't done the budget.
And inflation would be higher.
Anyway,
but I didn't get in on I wanted to have a quick comment on the young people because
you don't give a fuck about young people.
Whatever you're thinking, make sure you go to university. My dad would have slammed me if I was going to university and trying to get paper and getting running up debts. But do it. But actually, one of the things that I think is really good for young people around here is that now you don't have to go to university at the other end of the country. In Teesside, in the last few years, since I grew up, if you wanted a job in the civil service, you'd have had to go down to London. You can now get it in Darlington, and there are apprentices going in there. If you want to work in the greenest, cleanest, new energy stuff that's coming down the line, there are 20,000 jobs going on at the Freeport. great stuff. And then we're about to see this new film production place open in Hartlepool, £16 billion of government.
Should we deal with
Lots
the
of
question?
opportunities. I think it's really positive. But around the money,
Ben, let's deal with the question. And Ben is saying that tax rises for many. The point that many analysts, economic analysts, are saying is, okay, Labour have done this, but the Conservatives, if they had got into power again, they would have had to do something.
So I was on the BBC this morning, the love radio station at the BBC, and as I got to the end of answering the questions, the producer ran and she said, "Oh, but if the other side were here, they would have said about the £22 billion black hole." If you've got a black hole and you're trying to balance the books, then you reduce spending. The things that we've seen on spending, that we've seen the reductions in, whether it be clawing that money away from...
We need the fucking spending, you cunt.
Whether it be clawing that money away from pensioners, whether it be taxing on nicks, they're actually spending £70 billion more. So there are choices.
The dishonesty is unreal.
Everything has to be prioritised. There are things you can spend on.
Can I just say something as a non-politician? To all of you young people, go to university because it expands your mind. You become a human being. A university is not...
I've never had the opportunity to officially go to university. I still don't. All my learning outside of school has since leaving school has been through as whichever way I can do it. If I can find college or uni courses on YouTube to watch on YouTube, that's great. I've been watching them, keeping up with actual scientists and what they're saying about different things. But that's the best I've been able to get. The internet has been my university, and that's not going to help me get a job.
Not a business. It runs like a business, but it ain't a business. It is a center for expanding your humanity. And to me, a Labour government should know that. First, that is what's important to me, is to give people a chance to become bigger and better and human beings. Because one more thing for you.
Okay, we actually have to answer the question.
Yeah. Your generation is going to be up against AI, and you're going to have to know in your gut what a human being is and what a machine is.
Let's deal with the question. So what I'm wondering is you've got Ben here saying, when's he going to feel better? And I'm just wondering if there are any lessons we can draw, just coming back full circle from what we've just seen in the States, where the American economy is doing really well. And yet people...
Yeah, actually, after Biden was in charge.
Well, I'm just coming back to the American election.
Sure.
The American economy is actually doing very well. But nonetheless, it's clear from the result, what a lot of people have said, they just didn't feel in their pockets that they were doing well. And I'm just wondering, given what Ben has said here, you voted Labour, you're now thinking it's not quite what I was expecting. Are there any lessons for Labour here in terms of people feeling better off or not better off?
Labour needs to talk straight. Now, I'm not saying they're not, but they need to make their conversation with you and me as voters straight. The second thing that needs to happen is, and I'm saying this as a naturalized British citizen, and you may all know this naturally, what I don't get, every new government every new party comes in the government, they open the cabinet, they go, oh my God, I didn't know this was in here. Why don't you know? And why can't you put that in? No, I'm not saying you didn't. I'm not saying you didn't. But we need to have a manifesto that tells us what it is exactly and what they are going to do. I'm not saying Labour didn't do that. I'm not. But we need to be more plain spoken about it, because one thing I learned in this election, which was a tragedy for me, is that people, after the COVID pandemic, which was the plague, people are still cocooned in their spaces, and they want to get out and breathe, and that's what it's about.
The woman with the glasses.
That's almost incoherent, what she just said. I can't believe... okay. I mean, she was right, but how it responded to the question that I don't know.
I think we have had some straight talking, because if you listen, it's by the end of this 4 years.
Oh, yes! There is some hope for the UK. There's some hope for Britain. At least one person in this audience has come out and said what I've been wanting Sarah Jones to fucking say. Oh. It only took an hour and 25 minutes. Or 52 minutes and 18 seconds of this particular video. Fucking hell.
Things will begin to change, and it's going to take a generation for some of the public service investment to trickle through. Hartlepool has got one of the lowest rates of people going to university. And so...
University? She sounds like she's from down this way. A little bit. Maybe... Or she could be from, you know, the other side of the country. But she sounds like she's from the West Country.
We have to have other... We have to raise the aspiration.
We have to have other... Hampshire, maybe?
But we also have to have what's coming next year. The plans for...
Next year? It sounds West Country to me. Could be Norfolk. It could be Norfolk, because Norfolk's weird. It sounds a bit like us in the West Country.
Apprentices for better further education. Not everyone... That is not the route everyone's going to take, and we need to broaden our vision for the future in the northeast. And
in the northeast, that's it's that rotive R. Sorry, I'm getting in the weeds.
It's going to take a while. We can't expect in 4 months for us to feel better.
I have been waiting for someone in the public, someone in this position to say this. Oh, some people in our population understand what she's fucking saying. What I've been saying throughout this fucking video. Oh my god.
Okay. And here in the front.
Oh. And that was a big applause she got. And it seems like people agree with what she's just fucking said. Oh. Sorry, that is an actual relief.
With a black shirt on, yes.
The employers' national insurance increase is going to get passed on to all of us via our council tax, because surely the councils, as an employer, will want to pass that burden on, so they've got the same revenue coming in. So we're all going to pick up that extra tax.
I just check, as a public sector employer, are councils exempt from that?
I'm not entirely
sure. Okay.
sure.
The NHS is, but I don't think
the NHS is.
Yeah, I think they
primary care isn't GPs.
No, that's true. Tim.
Look, I think one thing that Labour was absolutely right about in the general election was talk about the fact that Britain, like many European countries, have become low-growth economies, and something needs to change because everything we've been talking about, universities, whatever. If we don't have growing economy, then we're in trouble. And my concern with the budget last week, how long are we going to have to wait until we see some dividends, is the cart's been put before the horse. The tax burden has gone up, which will be difficult for lots of small businesses, as I think the gentleman there was suggesting. But it's not the only measure that the government has taken that I think could really flatten growth. Now, all the individual measures are defensible, I get that, but the measures to give employees more rights will probably make it less likely that some people will be taken on. The extra national...
Just brazenly arguing against workers' rights. Tim Montgomery.
Insurance, the green burdens, the new controls on landlords. You all understand why you want these regulations and taxes, but the danger is this with government is But we have the highest energy costs
Yes,
in
that's not green.
in Europe and
The solution is that we grow our own energy here, as it were. We have green energy in the UK.
But the estimate is that the cost of Ed Miliband's policies, I think Ed Miliband is probably the most dangerous member of this government. The cost of his...
I hate Tim Montgomery. Fuck you, Tim Montgomery.
Policies will impose extra money on business.
The report that came out this week from the independent NISO, the body that's looking at what's possible, what's not possible, said that we can reach our target by 2030 and that will mean cheaper energy.
And then there's plenty of other forecasts that say actually the cost will be much higher. And one of the reasons...
Those forecasters right wing.
Why we do pay the highest energy in Europe is because already the cost of the green energies that we're pursuing.
It's not. It's because we're reliant on
He's
the oil.
actually blatantly lying right now. Blatantly lying.
Oil and gas licenses and import all of our oil and gas from elsewhere in the globe.
Let
Give all the jobs away.
me hear a little bit from the audience. Yes, there's a couple of men back there. Yeah, let's hear from you.
The first point is, do you honestly think the farmers are going to be better off under this budget? And the second point is that there's a lot of money going into... There's £1 billion set aside for SEND in education. We're recruiting 6,000 new teachers. But something I'd like to point out from a public sector perspective, we're looking at training, but we're not looking at retainment. We are not doing enough to retain the experience.
That's what the raising of the minimum wage was about, mate.
Of the public sector staff that we have, because that's how our public sectors work. And we've got to look at how we retain
But again, it's like people expect Labour to have fixed everything with this first budget. Why can't you have done this thing? Why can't you have done that thing? Why can't you have done this other thing? It's the first budget.
Yes.
Just
Sorry,
one
guys,
point
2 minutes left.
on the Labour Party. How can anyone trust the Labour Party again when they've gone back on everything that they said in their promises and their lead up to their...
They haven't. You're believing Tory bullshit.
Election.
You're believing Tory bullshit.
Any particular promises in mind when you say that? Do you have any particular promises in mind
I'm
when
so
you say
glad
that?
there's only 2 minutes left of this.
The pensions. The first thing the Labour Party...
Fuck you, mate. Your age group has been looked after while our age group has been forgotten and told to fucking deal with it. Fuck you. Deal with it, cunt. I have had enough of this. The older generation has had it a lot better than my generation for 14 fucking years. Go fuck yourselves.
What it did when it got into power was cut the money from pensioners. And all that
You're
does
talking
is
about the winter fuel allowance.
All that is doing is encouraging people not to work. People like me who have worked for 50 years to pay for a pension are now being penalised because we went to work. Had I been not a worker and satisfied to sit at home and watch television or go to the club on a weekend...
Your pension isn't being hit, mate. It's not. Your pension's not being hit. He's believing Tory bullshit.
I would have been getting my electricity...
The winter fuel payment. That's all it is.
Or help with my electricity bills this winter. At this moment in time, I am not.
And what about help for my age group? And a younger. What about, paying for housing? Building new houses? I do. I feel like the pensioners, especially the middle class pensioners, have had it easy. Pensioners, who've on state benefit, on state pension, really not had a great time. And I do worry for those. But those people who've been, who had their pension triple locked and whatnot, you've had it easy in comparison. You've had house. You've had home. And even then, what about the state pensioners? Like, your pension itself isn't being affected.
We've got about 30 seconds left. I mean,
30 seconds.
Yeah, I know. Listen, you can't answer. But just generally, how do you feel the budget has gone down? Because I've had a lot of discontent, not only today.
This is why Labour spent the last 2 months saying it was going to be a painful budget. And now people are going, people are acting all fucking surprised. People have been having a go at Labour for 2 months, saying, why are you saying it's going to be a painful budget? Why they bring out this painful budget, and now people are acting surprised. What?
But also last week.
So I think it was a difficult budget. Of course it was. We made choices and there are implications of those choices. But we made promises in the manifesto to protect working people, to invest in public services and to put in place the infrastructure that will grow our economy and create jobs. And that is what that budget has delivered. And the point the gentleman makes about public service workers is exactly right. And that's why we have managed to come to agreements in lots of the public sector strikes that were happening to make sure people are getting a decent pay. And the argument that people, Tim or others might make that, we're in the pocket of the unions and we're giving people, we're giving hard-working people a pay rise, and that's the right thing to do.
That's not his question.
How have you protected working people?
I'm so sorry. Forgive me, but we're actually over our allotted time, so I'm going to have to end the program. But I hear your points. You've made them very powerfully. I noted that you asked about farmers. I wondered if we might talk about that tonight. In fact, I think we may have got one question on that, but I'm sure that will come up at some point. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the panel.
Probably come down this week.
Thank you very much to all of you. I'm sorry to cut you short, sir. And thank you to you at home for...
Right, finally, this is done. Fuck's sake. There's a reason why I stopped watching this for a while. But not everyone in that audience has had their brain rotted, and it is so heartening to have had that older girl, that West Country bird, saying exactly what I've been fucking saying. But end of the Parliament. Oh, Sarah Jones wasn't great, but fucking brain rot, man. It is insane. The fact anyone can support Trump is insane. Especially if you're in this country. You don't give a fuck about us. And I will just reiterate this point. Yeah, Trump's unpredictable, but that makes him just as dangerous to us as to our perceived enemies. Okay? Right. I need to chill out. This is wound me up. So let me know what you guys think. Like and share and badger that sub button, people. My shield at your backs, guys, and my sword at your service. Good word, good fate from one angry pagan.